Is there a gun you would never buy or never buy again? This video will talk about that question. I don't think we can answer it. Is there a number one gun that you would never buy? Before we get into that, we have a gun giveaway going on. It's not going to be any of the guns that we're talking about now. All you need to do to enter is click in the description down below and find out which brand new gun you could win. It's absolutely free, but it ends really soon. I'm here with Tom Grieve, noted criminal defense attorney and gun aficionado, and the topic is we've been seeing stuff in the comments rolling around about, oh, I'd never buy that, I don't want that, and it's difficult for me to think of a gun I would never buy. There's, when I was younger, my father bought, I think it was for $126, a High Point 380 that when I looked at it, it was just blocky and ugly, and it would fire maybe 2 shots, and then we'd, cycle it by hand and make it work. And that's one of the things people talk about all the time is they will complain about some of the low-end firearms out there, and they're not working, and they don't function. When we produce Concealed Carry Magazine, we're very careful about which guns we put in the hands of the bad guys, of the villains, for the photographs in that magazine. And, we've dropped with like the Jennings J22 and the old Ravens and Lorsons and stuff like that. But when you're looking around and you're saying, yep, I want a gun, but, not this one, what comes to mind?
I'll give you 2. The one I bought that I never would again, and the one that I would never buy.
Okay.
Start with the latter. Actually, no. We're gonna start with the first one. My very first handgun I ever bought was a Rock Island 1911. Mm-hmm. Pretty much just about at the time the cheapest firearm in the store, or because I was poor. I was a poor student. I mean, sights were impossible to see. No, I mean, everything was molded in, so you couldn't swap out sights. I very rapidly learned that, the firearm really only worked reliably with really fancy magazines, at least for me at the time, $40 magazines. And this was nearly $20. Right. Yeah. It was a $300 some odd dollar gun. Right. Yeah. Yeah. This was not what I thought I was signing up for. Mm-hmm. And I sold it. Now I wish I kept it, of course, because
I'll never sell
the
another
nostalgia.
gun. I'll never sell another gun.
It never works out well, but that's certainly a firearm that I would never buy again. That's for sure. And the second firearm I ever bought then was back when I was doing IPSC and IDPA, which overlapped with the first one, which was a Glock 17 shot production class. Mm-hmm. And that definitely, I went from a firearm that seemingly just never worked, rarely ran, changing different springs, you name it. I mean, it was like buying a beat up car that, you're just tweaking the carburetor, and it's just, but Glock won me over for life, seemingly. I do own other firearms, but I just keep coming back to Glock. I probably put over 100,000 rounds. This was back when ammo, you could buy a 250 round shooter pack for like $4, $5, right? Yeah. So I was blowing through 1,000 rounds a week, sometimes even more back in the day, just practicing for tournaments.
So just to be clear, Glock is one you would buy. I want to make sure that,
Yes. Love Glock, own a lot of Glocks. But a Glock is what I'm also going to pick on for the ones that I would never buy, have not bought, would not buy, and that's the Glock 37. That's the 45 GAP, right?
Yep.
It was a great, I appreciate companies that innovate and are willing to take risks. Oftentimes it doesn't pay off. Sometimes it does. I still think we have to applaud companies for trying. And even though most things are a swing and a miss, sometimes they aren't. But here in 2022, where, it's trying to find hen's teeth for GAP ammo 45, and it's just, I don't see any reason to own that firearm.
Yeah, it never really caught on, and that caliber never really caught on. I was really happy to see Ruger come out with a 5.7 pistol, because it's going to save the 5.7 ammo, because now you don't have to pay $2,500 or whatever it is to buy the FN 5.7 or something like that. There's another one out there. When you started talking about a 1911 pattern pistol, I purchased a Ballester Molina Argentine kind of copy of the 1911. and again, didn't have a lot of money. Ooh, here's $269 for the Ballester Molina, and it looked like a Colt 1911 A2 from a distance. When you got closer, there was a whole lot that was different. And one of the things that was different was I couldn't get that gun to feed anything except ball ammo. That was it. No matter what I did with magazines or with, polishing feed ramps or I could not get that gun to feed properly. So that surplus gun, and there's a lot of guns out on the surplus market that, some of the Polish, 9x18 Makarov, they're firing the Makarov guns that, with the 57-pound trigger pull or whatever crazy stuff that
they get
it is
them down
out
to
there.
55 with the spring kit, though.
Yeah, when you're going crazy like that. But in truth, there's very few guns, and I argue this with people all the time because I get in the argument of there are guys who will, look you straight in the face and be like, well, what is your life worth? Why did you buy that inexpensive gun? For more than a decade, I carried a Kel-Tec P11 as a backup gun while I was on duty. That gun was inside my vest in my shirt, and that was the backup gun, and it was $200 or less. A little 9mm with the 10-round magazine inside, and when you loaded the magazine all the way full with every step you take, you could hear the top or the second round in the magazine vibrate.
Rattle.
It would rattle
Yeah.
inside, and so I would load it to 9, and then it wouldn't rattle or something like that. But I could trust that gun implicitly. That gun went bang every single time. And at, from 3 feet to out to, 15 feet, I could hit everything I was shooting at. It pointed very well. So I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to throw disdain on inexpensive firearms. Right. The ones that I don't like are the guns that don't work. Accuracy is negotiable. Reliability is not. I want a gun that goes bang every single time. So some of those guns that I talked about in the past, earlier, the Jennings and the Raven and the Lorson and that California Gun Valley pot metal, Bad Springs. Yeah, I'm not going to buy anything like that. But some folks would have a hard time convincing me not to buy, maybe 40 years ago, Taurus quality wasn't up there with other folks' quality. Now it is. Taurus guns work, and they work really well. I've shot a lot of them. I can't really pick one that I would just say, nope, this thing sucks, and I'm never going to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, for people who have really kind of come into the Second Amendment, the firearm space in the last 10 or so years, this was a different world. If you go back 20 years, I mean, if you go back 20 years, there were only a couple brands that you could say, this is going to work pretty much out of the box.
Yeah.
And everything else was maybe you'll get a good one, maybe you'll get a bad one, maybe the fitting will work, maybe you open up, there's going to be a tool mark. I mean, it was an entirely different world. And then somewhere maybe in the late aughts, I feel like, and around 2010, somewhere in there, I don't know, I'd have to, break out my calculator and figure it out. But somewhere back in there, people started to figure it out. Companies started to figure it out. And admittedly, I don't go to gun shops and sign up for the buffet and spend a whole day shooting like I used to, actually, which is how I know many firearms didn't work very well. But I bet if I did, the one that didn't work would be definitely the exception, not the rule. And when I say work, I mean feed 100 rounds totally reliably, 500 rounds reliably. I don't know where you want to set that benchmark. There's some less than reputable ammo when we start talking about surplus and stuff like that. Yeah. You've got some brands, of course, that, it's aluminum, not brass, and all this other kind of stuff. But I mean, we live in a golden age of when it comes to reliability, and that's great because that's what the consumer, that's what you and I, and that's what everybody else down the lens have said. This is what we want. We want firearms. It has to work. If it doesn't work, we're out. Yeah. And to their credit, well, if they wanted to survive at any rate, that's it. Manufacturers responded, and they've really upped their game.
Yeah, and a lot of those manufacturers are now out of business that were making crappy guns. They weren't, it was just They I won't say flooded the market. They put a bunch of those guns out there. But that time frame you're talking about, I go back to the old Clinton assault weapons ban. And when guns suddenly couldn't have more than a 10-round magazine, that was where, wait a minute, this whole concealed carry thing, states were starting to enact concealed carry laws. There was a high capacity or standard capacity magazine ban, so guns could only hold 10 rounds. Bunch of companies started coming out with smaller guns with the lower magazine capacity to match up with the assault weapons ban restrictions that I hated anyway, but it did force them to make different guns. And then you started seeing them getting new machining and new tools and new methods of measuring the tolerances and stuff like that. I was shocked when I walked through the Sig Sauer factory when they were making ammo at the number of computer and laser quality assurance spots when they were measuring every single component of stuff that went on there. And it happens in the firearms manufacturing area as well. So, the bad gun makers are pretty much gone. There might be a few out there that people don't like. And, I'll make people angry. I am not a fan of the 1911 pistol. It was probably great, from 1911 through 1945 because that's what we had. Now we have better designs that are more reliable and function better. And I've made this argument 1,000 times, is that there's a huge aftermarket for 1911 parts because there needs to be. That we need all that stuff to make the 1911 work the way we want it to work. And for the longest time, it can be ultra reliable but not real accurate, or real accurate and not really reliable. So there's arguments out that direction, but I'm not going to buy a single action 1911 pistol, single action, single stack, steel frame, ready to roll. I want something more modern that's going to function for me.
I like 1911s. I think there are many better carry options for sure. And I think that as far as your dollar goes, it probably goes about the least far with 1911s as compared to insert many modern brands here. Yeah. But I'm gonna strap on my white New Balance Velcro sneakers, and I'm gonna play, as the kids would say, Boomer Bob back at you here.
And so, your members only jacket?
Members only jacket, yeah. Right? Yeah, I'm coming from the Elks Club, and I'm coming in hot. Okay. All right. So you cited something interesting, which was, you said, well, there's such a huge aftermarket for 1911s because they're intrinsically unreliable, or because they need it at the end of the day. Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you, right? If I'm going to play devil's advocate, 1911 advocate, I'm going to say, have you seen how many mods there are for Glocks?
Yep.
Or more recently, certain Springfields not Springfields. Springfields too, but Sig Sauer and so forth, right? But Glocks, as coming from two big Glock guys, right? Yeah. So how would you respond to the guy who's busy flexing on his keyboard, ready to light you up for that comment?
That 1911s don't work.
They
need to be made to work.
Right.
Yeah, they need to be made to work. And before I got to this, my favorite job in the whole world, I had another favorite job in the whole world, working at Gun Digest Books. And I was the book editor of gunsmithing, pistols and revolvers, and all sorts of gunsmithing books. And one of the things that I noticed is the travel pattern from a round in a 1911 magazine has 6 or 7 different movements up and down and over things and stuff like that. And that was just because of the limitations of design and manufacturing when John Browning put this gun together. And it was like, well, I can do it this way and it's going to slide on through there. And then as we moved into the polymer age, that loading path is so much more smooth, and it actually even gets better when we use a bottleneck cartridge like 357 SIG. Then it just runs much more smoothly doing that. So how I would respond to that person is, okay, so you grab your 1911 and we'll go out to the range and we'll shoot 200 rounds of self-defense ammo, whatever it is you want to shoot, whatever hollow point or frangible or whatever it is that you want to shoot. And I will use a modern polymer pistol, and you go ahead and shoot your 1911, and we'll see which one stops first. And then we'll go through the list of things that you need to change to make sure the 1911 doesn't stop. And yes, I heard all the FBI tests and the Springfield Armory passed it and all that other stuff. It can be made to work, but there's doing a lot of work on them to get them up to that point. And you still got an 8-round magazine. So
it comes down to cost.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, assuming you can tolerate the size, assuming you can tolerate the weight, which in this day and age, we don't have to.
Yeah.
Which I think is, a point both of us would make, but really comes down to cost. You can't make, at least I have not met a $300 1911 that will run the same way as at the time a $300 some odd Glock would.
Yeah.
Right. Just dollar for dollar, it doesn't go as far.
Yeah. If you're finding $300 Glocks,
well,
somewhere,
back in the day,
okay,
I caveated that, right? Back in the day.
Just making sure, because I got a little excited. I was like, wait, $300 Glocks.
Yeah, no,
what do you
I
know?
don't think you can get used Glocks these days for that.
No,
but,
I don't.
right, yeah.
So, but we've started an argument, and people are going to be complaining about, what we're saying, and opinion is probably the lowest form of information that can be provided out there, because here's the data that I have to back this up, and this is, it is an opinion, but I've shot a lot of guns. I've had problems with a lot of guns. I've had just about every gun that I've owned has had some sort of malfunction, or I've broken a part on that gun after I've shot it enough for the parts to wear out. I have a Beretta 92 that when I changed out the springs on that gun, the mainspring was at least 3 inches shorter, the old mainspring, than the new one. And I was like, wow, okay, now it should run like a top, and certainly it did. I mean, I'd fired that gun so many times, and I bought it as a surplus gun, so who knows how many times it had been fired before that. The springs were just compressed, and I put in a new spring kit and changed the gun up, and it's running fine and working really well. The idea that most people are going to buy a gun and they're going to put it in the holster and they're not going to do anything with it. Most people are not like you and I, where it's like, ooh, what else can I do to make this gun work? The average citizen is buy the gun, make sure that it functions, hopefully learn how to clean it and maintain it, and then fire it. If they're doing really good work, fire it once a month and go to the range or something like that. And in that case, wow, all of the major gun makers out there now, and even some of what people would call mid-level gun makers, their guns are going to function. They're going to work fine. One that I will call out for certain is Charter Arms. Charter Arms is a tiny gun maker making these aluminum frame 38 special revolvers, the 5-shot revolvers, their undercover series. And I bought one for $50 and we have done videos with it. I have shot it till it was so hot that I couldn't open it. I couldn't touch it to get it open without burning my fingers. And the gun still functioned. And when I finally broke the gun, I sent it off to Charter and it came back like a week later, tuned up, fixed, ready to go. And they didn't ask me any questions at all. They were just like, okay, here you go. And so I can't really complain about gun manufacturing in America. There are a few. And, even when I said high point, I won't buy a high point pistol. I would buy a high point carbine. Those high point carbines run forever. Right.
Yeah. And it's just, it really just comes down to, the cost and how much you're willing to put into it, how many resources you're willing to put into it. I'm not somebody who's going back to the 1911s. I'm not someone who's anti-1911s. To your point, though, it's just their time has passed in many respects.
Yeah.
Still really cool guns, still really cool to shoot. I mean, talk about a trigger and so forth.
Yeah, I wouldn't want someone shooting one at me.
Certainly would not. Right? Yeah, certainly would not. And there's a couple boutique brands that do amazing things with them, turn them into 9mm, all that kind of stuff for concealed carry. But you're still pushing closer to 30 ounces with a dry unloaded firearm at that point. And,
a lot to be carrying all day.
That's a lot to be carrying. And again, it's not a matter of that won't work. It's just a matter of I think we can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again for your insight. Always great to talk about guns, especially with you. You're one of the few lawyers I know who knows about guns. So thank you very much for being here, Tom. I appreciate it. And folks, thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. I will remind you once again, we have a gun giveaway going on, and it ends really soon. All you have to do is click the link below and reveal which brand new gun you could win. I'm Kevin Michalowski, Director of Content for the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. If you like videos like this, share them with everyone you know. And then click the notification bell up in the corner. Click the like button so that we know you like the video. Share these all over the place. Comment down below. We want to get the word out with more guns and more videos. Stay safe. We'll see you in the next video.